Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club. I'm Jen.
I'm Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed. Happy Mom Day, Jen.
Happy Mom Day, Karlee.
Today is a day filled with emotions, so that's what we're going to talk about.
There's so many emotions.
There's a lot.
And they can be slightly different in different parts of your journey. And Karlee's experiencing the daycare week this week, and that's an emotional week.
We're filming the second episode of the day. We're doing back-to-back filming today.
Yep.
And in the middle of the last episode, daycare called and that Henry was unsettled. And I was like, well, do I come get him? And they're like, oh, they didn't say yes or no. And I was like, okay.
And you could hear him in
I
the
could hear him and he was crying.
Breaks
And
your heart. It broke my, I felt anxiety for Karlee. I was like, you're probably not feeling great.
I know, especially like if he's upset enough to call me, like, or not, he didn't call me. Can you imagine that they had to call me? I'm just like, well, how long has he been crying for? I really appreciate that they do call me instead of just like, I go to pick him up and they're like, he cried for 2 hours. Yes. But I was like, give him puffs. And then I called back a few minutes later and he was fine.
Little guy loves his puffs.
He loves his puffs.
Emotional support puffs.
Oh, but it just tears your heart out knowing that they're there and they're upset. And like, you know that you can make it better, but I also want them to learn how to settle him and him to learn that like he can be safe around these people, but it really just like pulls at the heartstrings that
it's also like a knife just going into the guts in your heart, right?
I miss him.
Yeah, we say this all the time. We're going to do an episode about like the transitioning back to work and daycare and/or for me, was really close together. You have like a couple weeks,
I have a month,
we're fairly similar in like daycare and then soon after is work. So we're going to do an episode about our experiences.
But I won't be pregnant also. So you have a triple whammy. You have daycare, going back to work, and being pregnant all at the same time. And
a lot of hormones going on.
There's a lot of hormones.
I've cried at work a few times.
Oh, but, yeah. You got to have like a safe space to cry at work.
I've told all the ladies that I work with right now, and I've just been like, it's okay. Just like ignore me if I'm crying in the corner. Like just leave it. And
Yeah, so, today is going to be another emotional one. We're continuing with our series about the emotions of motherhood because there's a lot of them. People don't talk about them and people feel shame about them. So you know what? We're just going to air it out on the internet for you.
And this is part 3. Our third one of emotions.
And this one's about the emotions around having a second child. So Jen and I are in a very interesting, well, we're having opposite experiences. Yes. And that Jen is pregnant right now. Lots of emotions about it, where I also I'm not pregnant, but I want to be pregnant, but we're not trying because it's just not a good time for us. And then I have emotions about that. Jen is pregnant with baby number 2, which we were trying to figure out how to word this. Is like not planned, but not planned in the way that they weren't trying, but it was within the realm of possibilities. And
yes,
I don't know if there's a way you want to word it.
No. I mean, it was a surprise and it wasn't planned ultimately, but it was we weren't against having a second child. We just maybe wouldn't have done it this close together. And
from as long as I've known you, your birth control methods have been questionable. So it's not.
I really hate taking medication.
Oh, I don't blame you.
I hate birth control.
Yeah.
And I know doctors warn you, you could be fertile, but I'm here to tell you that it can
happen. But I remember saying to you, well, you could get pregnant at any point. And you were like, but if it happens, it happens. It was always part of your plan to just kind of leave it up to the stars a little bit. Whether and I think if having a unplanned pregnancy was the worst thing for you, then you would have been addressing. You would have been doing.
Totally fair. Yeah. I really didn't think it would have happened because I thought my period had just ended. Let's just clarify. I'm just gonna be very vulnerable. I thought, and this is maybe my mom brain. And Karlee had a similar funny story, but sometimes you're just did it just end or did it not? Am I actually maybe ovulating? And I was sure I wasn't. So this came out of left field because I just thought the math was that it was impossible.
You were in the safe zone.
And then when I looked at my tracker, my period tracker app, I showed it to my husband. I was like, we were not in a good zone. And then there was.
But then it took you a year to get pregnant with your first. So what are the chances that one time? I mean, the chances are it happens.
I mean, and apparently you're just very fertile. Yeah. A guy at work was making fun of me and he's like, of course. He's like, I remember my wife being like, I can't even look at you. I don't even want to chance it. And people joke, funny. But it's true. You can be extra fertile. So it is something to be aware of. Do you ever really prepare for expanding your family? It's really hard. I see pros to it just kind of having happened because I didn't get the opportunity to overthink it.
For sure.
And overanalyze and I'm terrified of hyperemesis, and it's like a high 80% chance that if you have it with one, you're going to have it with another. Like I didn't freak out about it as much because I didn't have time to prepare for it. Like
exactly. It was good for her that it was kind of a little bit of a whoopsies because both of us had difficult trying to conceive and pregnancy journeys that the thought, like for me, the thought of getting pregnant again, like I don't know how I'm going to actually try to make that happen.
Because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you just listen to the second episode of Emotions of Motherhood, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many terrible emotions come up. So how do you get yourself to do that again? And I remember my therapist telling me this.
You practice questionable birth control methods.
Well, I remember my therapist telling me that there's actually like a psychological trick that your brain will play on you, especially in mothers, that after you have a baby, that it kind of forgets the bad parts because otherwise people wouldn't conceive again. They wouldn't grow their families. The population wouldn't repopulate. The world wouldn't be as we know it. So she's like, there's actually like a protective mechanism in your brain so that women would keep reproducing because otherwise who would want to go through birth again and go through pregnancy and go through all these traumatic experiences? So it's hard to like, and then how do you
think about it?
How do you plan when to do it? Like I didn't plan when, I didn't prepare for the why, which I can see there's
which
pros
now
and
you're
cons
struggling
to it.
with in a way, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot. And then also, like Jen said, when do you feel that you're ready? You have concerns around your health and work and finances and fears around your family dynamic changing.
Yeah.
And then also, I want to wait until we're ready. Like I'm very practical that way, that I can't, like it is not an option until I know for sure that it's an option. Mm-hmm. For me, that's just the way I approach things. But now I'm scared, well, what if I wait and then I can't get pregnant? Because then there's that looming over me. Like it's, yeah.
That's what I mean. I'm very curious if anyone ever feels like now is the perfect time. Like, is there ever a perfect time? Are you ever 100% ready?
No.
Like, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're doing a very practical approach. But right now, your emotions and what's practical aren't meeting.
They're conflicting and you're having very hard.
As you've expressed earlier, we'll get into it. So let's get into, I'm going to ask Karlee some questions. So kind of where she is in her journey of want to have a second child, but we're not there yet. It's not practical for our family. Having a friend that is pregnant with number 2, like that's also...
It's heavy.
I'm like, it's triggering. That's I think the word, right? It triggers different emotions too. So I'm going to ask her some questions and we're going to go through kind of what emotions she's feeling in this stage, and then she will ask me some after that. In general, what are your thoughts on having a second baby?
Well, like I said, I'm terrified to start trying because I don't know if I can deal with the defeat of not being able to get pregnant and all of those feelings that it might bring up when I'm already more fragile now because I have a baby. Like babies make you a little blah, as we're talking about. So now I'm thinking like, well, how do I do that again and go through that trying to conceive journey? And I carry so much heaviness and like sadness from my TTC journey and even being pregnant with Henry. So my thoughts are that I want to have a second. I wish that I could be having it or be pregnant now. I want to skip the whole trying to conceive and pregnancy part, but I know that's part of the journey. I'm going into it with a broken heart. But then I also have Henry and I know what the like prize is at the end of the tunnel. But
did you plan to have kids closely? Like before you even started trying to conceive, what did that look like for you?
I always wanted to have kids close. I think my age plays into it, that I kind of just thought, not getting any younger, just bang them out. But I feel like everybody says that. They say, oh, I'm going to have kids close together. And then they have a kid and they're like,
not just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. Change that tune. But Henry's almost a year now. And I actually it would be a lot to add, but I do feel like I still feel that urge of wanting to have kids close together. And, if we weren't in a giant recession with inflation and these interest rates, I probably would be pregnant right now because I think it would be a lot easier to go back to work already being through that first trimester. So yeah, I did want to have them close together. They might still be like around 2 years potentially, but potentially more than that, which was never... Oh, my tummy rumbled. That was like an internal burp in your microphone.
I didn't really hear it, but I could hear it. That was funny.
Right into the microphone.
So what feelings kind of from your trying to conceive Henry are you feeling now? Like what's coming up right now when you think about having baby number 2?
I think the main one that comes up a lot is that I'm just gonna like be left behind from all my other friends that are either going to have baby number 2 or are pregnant with baby number 2. I have these like these are emotions literally from childhood that come up with every major life event. And I worry that I won't be able to get pregnant. I worry that I'm not going to have any of like my current mom friends to celebrate this with. I just have this like really awful feeling of being left out, which I know is not the case. Whether or not I have a second baby is just how I feel.
Emotions in pregnancy don't always make sense. Like emotions in
Exactly.
pregnancy, having babies, I shouldn't say pregnancy. Emotions regarding like growing your
Yeah.
family, trying to conceive, pregnancy, like they don't always make sense.
They're not rational.
They're not always rational, but they happen.
They happen,
And that's why we need
and-
to hold space for them, that
For sure.
these things can come up.
Yeah, because I'm feeling them. Me denying them isn't going to make me not feel them. It's just going to make them feel more shameful and like secretive, but I can talk about them, and other people might be going through this too.
It is good. Sometimes when you say it out loud, it allows you to like analyze it differently or think about it in a different way. Or sometimes other people will bring up like, have you thought about it this way? And sometimes you can get good feedback from other
To
people.
reframe it, yeah.
I mean, not that people are like, oh, that's it. Like you don't want people to invalidate your feelings, but
Exactly.
sometimes other people have good points of views you can learn from. So, okay. So that's about whether or not you want a second child and like kind of your thoughts on that. What emotions did you have when I announced my pregnancy?
We've talked about this, so I'm not like blindsiding her on camera, but it was very triggering for me, and not in the sense that like I didn't want her to be pregnant. It comes back to the same feelings of when I was trying to get pregnant the first time. Like I wanted us to do it together. I've told her many times that like me being triggered by her being pregnant, like it's a me problem and it's my things that I need to work through. But because it wasn't necessarily planned, I didn't prepare for this to happen. Do you know what I mean? Not that I want to make your pregnancy about me, but it's different if you know a friend is trying. You can think, okay, so like our lives aren't maybe we're not going to experience that together. But because it wasn't necessarily planned, we were all blindsided by it.
Everyone was blindsided.
I think I had this like moment of grieving. Well, I did have this moment of grieving of like, I want to be having a second baby. I want us to have a second baby together. Like, how fun would that be? That's not going to happen, especially because I know that like it's not within my plan right now to even start trying. So I think it also brought up a lot of feelings that like I'm really triggered by unplanned pregnancies because I feel like it could never happen to me. But looking at Jen's situation, like we were in similar-ish boats, like it could happen to me. So I find it very triggering for unplanned pregnancies. And when people say I'm going to get pregnant this month, because like not everybody has that opportunity and that choice. And a lot of people who say that don't realize that they don't have that. But some people, if they had an easy time with their first, they like pick a month and they're like, okay, I want a baby in December. Well, nobody does, but I'm going to get pregnant in March. So that I find triggering. And then I think my biggest thing with you, well, not with you, but like with you, this situation is that I think my biggest thing with like our dynamic right now is that I'm feeling triggered that, and again, this is a me problem, you're having the experience and your family is growing in the way that I always envisioned. And I'm dealing with feelings of grief that this isn't going to happen to me. And then I'm also dealing with like envy that it's happening to somebody close to me, knowing that I can't have that. It's just, it's a lot. And it's not even like a jealousy thing because I want you to, like, I feel like you've always wanted kids close together as well. Like, I feel like you've always talked about it since we've met. We met when we were both about 1-2 months postpartum. I'm happy for you that this is like going to be your plan. I mean, I'm not really jealous you're going to have 2 under 20 months, but in this moment, maybe. I don't know. It's bringing up a lot.
There's so many feelings. I think it's totally valid for you to be triggered by this. Like, I'm not offended by this.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's completely normal for it to be triggering.
For sure. And I think a lot of people would keep it in, then like there'd be resentment and like bitterness and angriness. And I think that it could really drive a wedge between a friendship.
Yep.
And it's not, like I said, it's nothing she did. It's just sometimes
blame it on Nat.
Yeah, let's blame Nanad. But sometimes just people's lives can be triggering and they can upset you, and you can have feelings of grief and sadness because of what somebody else is going through. The same way if somebody gets a promotion and you have some crappy job, like you can feel those feelings of jealousy, and like it's not that you don't want them to have it. It's okay to want that as well. And I think it's a good life lesson that in friendships, it's very important to talk about these things, because otherwise you're going to start being passive aggressive or being angry about things that are nothing to do with it. And like, I would be sad if this ended our friendship, which like it's not going to, because we've talked about it.
I think it just, fertility and trying to conceive is just such a, it's already a triggering subject regardless of who you know. Like you could see a random person on the internet get pregnant. Oh, yeah. And that can trigger anyone, not you, but like that could trigger you.
Well, it does trigger me.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So there, and then it's different if you have friends. I had a friend that was going through IVF for years. And when I got pregnant, it was really hard for her. She already had one child for years, right? Her child was like 4 years old at the time. But it still triggered her for me to get pregnant because she had been trying for years and spending a lot of money. But we talked about it and it was hard, but we got through it and we are still friends. And it's okay for her to be triggered. It's okay for it to be hard. Like it's not fun. No one wants that. You don't want to trigger someone else, but it's also life that
for sure.
Friends are going to go in different journeys. People are going to move. They're going to go on all these vacations that we can't afford. They're going to, buy houses and do things. And it sucks when you realize that I found this, like you and your friend, I feel like in high school and university, you're like, we're just going to do everything together. Mm-hmm. And when you realize that that's not how it's sad.
Not how life unfolds. Yeah. We have to grieve the life we expected, regardless of how unrealistic it was. And something I really appreciated, even though she did not owe me an apology, she said, like, I'm sorry that my pregnancy is triggering things for you, which, like, she doesn't have to apologize for anything. It's hard because I didn't want her to feel bad, but I was also having these emotions and feelings, and I couldn't just keep them in. So I think it was a very good, I don't know. She understood what I was going through and was apologizing because I was going through it, knowing that her circumstance sort of got it started, but also recognize that it's not a personal thing. I'm not actually mad at her. I'm not holding it against her that this is what her experience is. I think we've both just been through a lot and we both realized. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
don't even know if you remember saying that.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad I did, but I think I just know what it feels like to be triggered, and I know it sucks. And I know it sucks when things happen at different times. I didn't think it would make me emotional, but it does. But you know what? Like, it's just not fun. And no one wants to trigger someone else. And no one wants to. And I think it is going to be a hard journey in our group of mom friends when things start happening at different rates. I think it's going to be hard.
Exactly. Especially like knowing that friends are going to start trying soon. And
yes,
even like knowing that that's going to be their journey soon. I
think no matter how much you prepare, it still could be triggering. I mean, no one prepared for this trigger. But even if you knew, like, okay, like we know a few mom friends, they're going to start trying soon. I feel like it still will suck if it happens. You know what I mean? It still will trigger you because.
Especially when I get to the point where we're going to start trying again. And I just don't ever want to go back to that point where like every like month to month, I'm just like my life is defined about whether or not I'm able to get pregnant. Like there's so much more to me than just being able to get pregnant. And I'm very hopeful that it's going to happen again. And I'm like really just crossing my fingers that it's not going to be the same situation, but maybe it will be. And it's just like I wish there was like a little magic 8-ball or like somebody could tell me. I think such a hard thing to plan for.
And I think it's worth mentioning because I don't think some people realize that there's infertility. There's also secondary infertility. And just because you got pregnant once doesn't mean you're going to get pregnant twice. And I think a lot of people don't understand that or don't know that. And I think you working in your field, you know very well what can and can't happen and things that can happen and how infertility works. And I know someone who went through secondary infertility. So I know not firsthand, but like I know very closely that it's a real thing.
And secondary infertility is when you got pregnant, had a baby, and then you are experiencing infertility with the second baby.
Yes.
So it's not primary, and they don't like infertility. It falls under the umbrella of that, but it's specifically that you've already had a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good. A good point to explain it. But just so I think that's where your experience is you're like, just because I had one doesn't mean I will automatically have a second. And some people expect it to mean that, and some people just don't even know that's a thing. But I think you're just so educated in this topic.
I know too much.
You know too much that it's hard.
Exactly. And like, look at you. Like, I could get pregnant the first month. Like, just because it took me a year the first time doesn't mean it's going to take me a year or longer the second time. It could be, I don't know, maybe I'm pregnant right now. No, I'm not.
But when you put expectations on it, the bigger the expectations, the harder the fall. So you don't want to.
I know. It's a lot. Man, making babies, all these things that men don't have to deal with. Well, some deal with it, but they don't experience it the same way we do.
And they will never experience it the same way. And we actually, my husband and I have talked about this, that we wish he was experiencing it. We wish that we could take turns. Like I did the first baby. It would be very nice if he could do this baby. And that's not how life works, but that would be very nice if you could. That'd
be very nice.
You could swap, but
we're going to move on to Jen quickly. But one thing I just want to add in is that one more layer of sadness is that we had the best postpartum. Like looking back from like when we met and we met that big group of mom friends and we started going to the library, like I honestly feel so truly blessed that that was my first like postpartum experience. And we were talking about it the other day that like we're never going to get that time back. We're never going to get to go through that again. And I don't know. I get filled with like all the warm fuzzies that it was just so amazing. But then it also brings feelings of sadness that my second postpartum journey may not look like that. And it may not, like I have a very high standard now. And it's, like,
trust me, I'm experiencing the same, like, because we were very
great time.
Blessed for our experiences, and it completely changed the outcome of postpartum for me. But do you find that again with your second? But you can never plan for you and your friends to all get pregnant. Like, even if you started trying at the same time,
sadness,
you still are not guaranteed to go through it at the same, like it's.
Yeah. So I think at this point, we're very grateful for our memories from our first postpartum. Our goal is to make Jen's second postpartum just chef's kiss.
It's even just been a hard transition going back to work though, because
work sucks.
I think I was one of the first ones to go back to work because I have to get my hours for maternity leave, but like everyone goes back at different times. So then people start fading out of like going to the events. And I think that's really a hard reality when you're like, oh, like you can't do these anything anymore. And like, then you go and some events have been smaller now. Like there's been less moms going because life is kind of, not life is starting again because you're still living.
A new chapter. There's a new chapter.
Different parts of your life are coming back, and it's really hard to keep those kind of like relationships going, but it's so important to. Like we want our babies to still hang out all the time and get to do stuff, but when you start doing shift work and weird schedules like I have, like it just.
Well, maybe what we need to plan is like once a month, an out of baby time celebration, a hangout where we can hang out with all the mom friends, either on like a evening, a weekend, or even like we can all play hooky and send the kids to daycare.
Sweet.
I think that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Jen some questions now.
Okay.
So, number one, what was your initial reaction when you found out you were pregnant, other than shock?
I was gonna say that's the biggest one.
Yeah. What was your number one emotion? I guess shock is an emotion.
Fear. Mostly because of hyperemesis, and if I was gonna get it again, fear of being ready, fear of if this was even, is this the right call? Like you said, I am a very big believer in like trying to be like not what's meant to be will be, but that kind of idea that like, okay, this was clearly gonna happen, like it's happening. Maybe this is the only way I would have gotten pregnant because I'm not sure if I could have mentally
planned for it
and
intentionally.
It's something that because I was so sick in life, I haven't gone to therapy in a while. Like I went this week a few times, but I haven't gotten to deep dive into some of these emotions that I've been feeling. But the biggest one was fear. Holy crap, I can't do this. I cannot do this.
There's definitely pros and cons to an unplanned pregnancy. And I feel like for your situation, it like, I don't want to silver line it because it's still hard, but like it was a little bit of a blessing.
Yes,
because I think
agree.
that it would have been hard for you to like intentionally try again, knowing how difficult your pregnancy was.
I think that, and I had told my husband this, that we always wanted to try to have them close together after I had Jordan, because I said the further away from hyperemesis I get, the less likely I will put my body through that again.
For sure.
And like mentally and physically. So I said the only way I will even debate having a second kid is if we try soon. And so we hadn't decided, a hard yes, hard no, but it was just, I can't wait 4 years and try. Like I would never do hyperemesis
You just can't. And the older you get, it gets harder. Pregnancy itself gets harder. And
I was like, the more I let myself ruminate and think about it, I won't do it.
And also, even when Jen announced it to me, well, she didn't announce it. She sent me a pregnancy test being like WTH or WTF. WTF. One of those. And I was like, what? But I was saying, you just want to get more content for the podcast. Yeah. And you know what? This is the gold, Jen, that you're bringing us. So
I think that it was worse. Like a little backstory is that I thought I got my period. So I messaged being like, oh, like we're good. Not pregnant, got my period. And I told my husband this. My husband went to therapy and told his therapist I got my period and how happy he was that I wasn't pregnant. So there was a lot of like, we're in the clear. It's not happening. And I don't know, implantation, old blood. I don't know what it was, but it was just enough blood to think I got my period. But I guess it wasn't. It wasn't my period. And I knew my husband had just been like, thank goodness. And he had just been so excited that I wasn't pregnant. So I actually was very, very sad and terrified to tell him, to be like, you don't want this. You're not going to be happy. So there was also an added bonus of Jen's not pregnant, then Jen's pregnant.
Yeah, an extra roller coaster ride. An extra loop-de-loop.
That I got to put them through, that I told them about.
Especially because regardless of what you told him the first time, if you said, like when you got your period, if you said, I'm pregnant, he would have had one reaction, like probably been like, okay, we can do this. But then the fact that you said, oh, I'm not pregnant, I got my period, then he was relieved because like, you're never ready. So the relief wasn't that he never wanted to have a baby. It's that he was like, hey, maybe this isn't the most ideal time. And maybe it's not the most ideal time, but you guys are figuring it out and it's happening. So I
mean, we've talked about this. I don't know the episode numbers. My memory is, but we talked about relationships and it's been very hard on our relationship. Like the really hard trying to conceive and pregnancy journeys, like it's not easy on your relationship. It's going to test your relationship in ways you've never experienced. And we've talked about this before. And so I think he was just like, we're just kind of like, we'd started going to couples counseling. And I think he just was like,
getting your groove back.
We're getting in a good groove. We're doing better. So I think he just was like, shit, I don't want to have to like go through this again. And he had fears that I was going to die in the first pregnancy. So I think and that comes up.
He has his own trauma too.
Yes.
It was a lot. It's a lot for both parts. Obviously way more for you, but it's a lot for both.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your pregnancy. What has been the most challenging part about being pregnant with baby number 2 emotionally? Because we know physically you had hyperemesis again. That was hard, but what emotionally?
I think it's a whole different ball game being pregnant when you already have a child.
It's a whole new sport.
It's like you're cheating on a spouse. I feel like I'm cheating on my child. And then if you don't feel good and you're not present for your children like you want to be, and then I felt like I was missing out when I was in the bathroom. So like, even though I was not happy, like and the physical stuff was happening, I felt like I was like such a terrible mom to my daughter.
You having the guilt feeling, the mom guilt.
I feel like even if you don't have a bad pregnancy, like there's just, you're like, I just felt like I'm giving something to another child. How do you...
Yeah.
And this is what I struggle with. How do you add in another child and love them the same way you love your other child? Like, my love is so great for Jordan. How do you split that? Is it equal? Do I have room to be equal? Like, I don't.
Heard people say that you don't have to share the space in your heart. Like, you don't have to share the love. It's that your heart grows bigger. Have you, like the whole Dr. Seuss thing? I know.
That sounds exhausting. That's
I'm exhausted for you.
To me.
Yeah.
Like,
did you feel a lot of guilt about adding another baby?
Yes. I felt a lot of guilt about that. And I think every mom probably experiences like, how do you add a second child? And then are they going to feel left out? And obviously when you have a baby, there's a lot, like you're with the baby a lot, holding, sleeping, feeding. So then like, are they going to feel like they're getting left behind and you don't want them to feel that way? I feel like the growing a family is a huge, just like mind mess.
Definitely.
I think
it's a lot
for families, but I think moms, because you have the fun emotions of like hormones also play a part.
And I think we think and consider and like ruminate on the what ifs a lot more than our partners do.
It's like we worry about our emotions,
but
also baby's emotions. So there's like now you've added a whole nother person's emotions.
And you care about them. They're your child. Like I see how much you love Jordan. And I know you're going to love baby number 2 not the same, but like you're going to love them a lot and your heart is going to grow and make space for them. But like looking, I'm like, how? Like, I get it. I can empathize with that feeling of like, how do you make it? Yeah. So parents of two, give us a pep talk.
Yeah, I think we all need to know,
Yeah.
like, what how do you deal with it when you actually bring more kids into the
But I've
picture?
never, like, I've seen a lot of really nice, like, sentimental, like, Instagram reels and posts and reels and videos and stuff about, yes, you just feel more love. But I don't see ones of being like, yeah, I had a second kid and now I don't love my first. Like, I've never seen that. But also
no.
nobody talks about that. But yeah.
I think it's gonna be hard, and we're here to talk you through our journeys and
Yes.
all these fun things we experience.
We'll keep you updated, fam. So what is an emotion, or is there an emotion you're experiencing this pregnancy that you didn't experience last pregnancy?
I think it's just worrying about another child. Like, I've never experienced
You have
this.
her emotions now that you didn't have the first time.
Yeah, so the first time was like, oh, like, it sucked for me mostly. Like, it was my own issues, and now it's like, sucks for me, but it also sucks for Jordan, and like,
it's going to be hard on her. I know that we're not supposed to like be fixing it, but I do want to say it's going to be hard on her. But like, how beautiful is their relationship going to be? They're going to be 16 months apart. Like, that's going to be amazing. It's going to have so many challenges and it's going to be difficult. But I just think like
and I will say, from talking to a lot of moms, like, and we've talked about this in like, what is the perfect age gap? And I don't think there is one. I think that there are pros and cons to every age gap imaginable, to having twins, like kind of doing the one and done and just getting your 2 kids that you wanted, to having a year and a half apart, 2 years apart, like
3 years apart.
We've talked about this. Like, what if you could plan it perfectly? What is the perfect gap?
I think there's some gaps that work better for some families.
Totally.
And some people have a preference. But I really do think that whatever your gap is going to be, it's going to be your family. It's going to play into the dynamics that become your family.
And you're going to make it work. You're going to shift how, oh my God.
My stomach is going wild. I hope you guys can hear this.
I hope that it's on there and you can hear that just like, grrr. Yeah.
Shush. Yeah. What are you saying? That whatever you're...
It's going to be hard regardless, and you're going to find things to worry about, and you're going to find ways to make it work, and you will just do it.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to
like
be your
having
family.
a baby. You do the damn thing.
You do the damn thing.
You figure it out. And so I think we've talked about this in a lot of like, okay, so we're going to plan, like, you're very practical. So you've thought a lot about like, what is the most practical age gap when, all of these things. And similar of like, we only have 2 extra bedrooms. So like, do you cap it at 2 kids then? Like, we will be done after this. And it's a whole nother thing, but this is it. But like, we don't have any more rooms. I guess then kids could share a room. But then once you have more than 3 kids, then you need another vehicle, and then that's an expense. Yeah. Like, there's a lot to home.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to growing families that's more than just
like, there's a lot of logistics than just will you love them?
And then there's the whole emotional component.
Yes, it's a lot. All right. So the main thing with baby number 2 is that you're carrying the emotions now. The emotions you feel for your first child, Jordan, and the ones that like she feels as well. Mm-hmm. So do you have any emotions? Like, what comes to mind when you think about having a second child close in age? Good emotions, bad emotions? We're talking about there's pros and cons to every age gap. Yeah. So knowing that you're going to have a close age gap, what comes up?
I hope that they will be close friends. Because when you're just like, you have cousins close in age, you generally like gravitate towards them, get along better. But I think that, and I'm just like, in a practicality, I'm like, you know what, we're just going to do it, and they can use the same clothes. They can use these things. Maybe they can share clothes, and that'll help them have a bond as they get older. Or, they can share friends, and they can be in the same friend group because they'll be close in age. So there's like the positive ones that I really hope that this works in a good way. But Jordan's just also not old enough to really know what's going on. So she won't be able to express herself yet. She won't be able to like...
She's not gonna be able to tell you how she's feeling about it, but you're gonna know, because you like, I hear babies, like when a new baby comes, they always regress. So there may be a regression. There may be, some rage. She's gonna have emotions. Like we're just
getting into like a rhythm. We're getting into a bit of a good rhythm, and sleep is finally getting together. We figured out this cow's milk allergy. I'm just like, I just want to break for a little while. And that's not the reality with children, but my brain is just feeling like I need a break. And knowing that I'm not going to get a break is just hard. Exhausting. Like, I'm just feeling so much stress over, holy crap, it's going to, like, I need to get through I like to look at, like, I just need to get to this point. I just need to get to this point. Like, it helps me to think in short little bursts. Yeah. It helps my anxiety. But right now my anxiety is like, I need to get through the next 2 years before there might be any little
Relief,
bit of like,
yeah. But we need to break it down
I know
sooner than that.
It's not
Are
good.
you
That's just
able
how my
to
brain
go
is
off?
thinking.
We both got brain problems. Are you able to go off work earlier this time? Like not start your mat leave sooner? Like I guess you could go on medical leave or something.
Yes,
Because I think that like for your own mental health and sanity, you need a couple weeks where Jordan's in daycare, you can literally put your feet up and relax for yourself, like mentally. Like, I think it's a medical necessity.
Yeah, I think there was definitely the financial stressor of for us here, and I don't know what it's like in other countries or provinces even, but
I don't think it's good anywhere.
yeah, but you need to work 600 hours basically.
Oh, I thought you meant just the financial climate right now. Yes.
Correct, but also when you want to have more kids, if you want to get a paid mat leave again or to even collect EI, you need to work 600 hours. So depending if you chose the 1.5 year mat leave and you get pregnant, depending on when, you might not have enough time to get your 600 hours. You might have to go early. Like there's logistics to it too. And then who can afford to not get a mat leave? Like that's also
Kim Kardashian.
So I have to work until at least the end of December, I believe is my math. And then baby will be here mid to end January. So I might be able to get a few weeks that I could actually be on medical leave. I don't know. We'll see.
Play it by ear.
But I don't like to say like we both have practical minds that I think we think a lot about finances and how can we afford and where are they going to sleep and sharing rooms. Do they share rooms? Do you not share rooms? Then do they have separate? Like is one bigger than the other? Like there's a lot of practicality things that stress me out and then my brain just.
And then what's interesting when you actually experience it, you're like, none of that stuff mattered.
Totally.
Like for me, I do the same. I fixate on things. I like ruminate and I worry and then it happens and I'm like, I've spent months stressed about that. And it literally was a non-issue.
Yeah. It's the same though about when you have emotions, like you said, with your friend, you're going to be like, this is going to end our friendship if I tell her that I'm like, this sucks for me. Like you worry and worry and worry. And then you say what you're thinking. And so many times they're just like, okay, that's like, you know what I mean? You worry so much about.
And then you say it and you're like,
I don't know how to like.
So you're trying to tell me that I worry too much, but no, we both do. You set up this thing in your brain that it's going to be this huge deal, and then you get through it. And I almost want to say that's the same as like getting pregnant again. Like I know this pregnancy has been very challenging on you, but now like the light at the end of the tunnel is so much brighter. You know?
Now I'm just like I'm never gonna have to experience hyperemesis again, and like that is
a relief.
And I don't know if I could survive it, and there's just a lot of emotions around.
You would survive it, but you wouldn't thrive through it, and that's not fair for you to have to go through that. It's not fair for your relationship. Like not fair, but like that's just not part of your plan. It's not what you want. You would survive it, but like, do you want to go through it? You don't.
And I feel like I think we talked about this maybe in the first episode of Emotions, is that it feels like sometimes the choice is taken away from you, and you want the choice. Like, if you can't get pregnant a second time for whatever reason, for whoever, like, is that choice taken away from you? Like, you didn't get to decide to stop growing your family. That was decided for you. And there's something about that choice being taken away that does not, it does. It feels really not good. And so a lot of women I know with hyperemesis, I'm part of a group, say that it's like they felt like that choice was taken away from them. And like some people end up in the hospital the entire pregnancy. They have heart failure. There's like lung complications that can happen. Like there's some really, really, really terrible things that I didn't experience. They get feeding tubes. And so a lot of them doctors say like it is actually not safe to get pregnant again. This is our suggestion is never have more children. And so no one wants to have that choice taken away from them. Sure. And so I think that's an issue too when you start thinking about planning your family. It's not like you can just say it's going to happen at this day and time and
it's going to be a breeze.
It's right. Like
there's a lot. There's so many layers that go into planning for your first baby, your second baby, your fifth baby.
And I think it's triggering because so many people are naive about it and very like blasé about like, oh, I can't wait to have baby number 4 and we're going to get pregnant this year. And you see all these things online and it's very like,
there's a lot.
It's not actually realistic. And you're just setting up other women for failure and for more heartache when you say things like this. And it's actually very hard for a lot of people. I mean, I think I go back to just being, as much as I have all these negative emotions about this pregnancy and how I'm feeling, like I do just feel grateful because And I don't want to make it sound worse for you.
No,
and I
no,
don't
no,
want to
no,
bring
no.
up your emotions. I just don't know how emotionally I could have gotten through it.
And I 100% agree with that. And I actually think this is a good thing for you.
I know. I just don't want to I don't want to
No, of
invalidate
course.
like that.
Oh, no. You're not invalidating how I feel at all. I think that you needed this. And I think you're handling it very well. And you guys, you're doing the dang thing. And I think for me, we're going to cross that bridge. Yeah. And I know that even though you didn't have to go through trying to conceive a second time, I know that you will be a support to me when I do go through that. And maybe I'll have a little Christmas whoopsies. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. No, but yeah, this is why we wanted to make this episode, because we're in completely different stages right now. Yeah. But we are still supporting each other through it. Well, I hope you feel supported. Yeah. But, and I think we're both being very sensitive about the other person's emotions. There's so many emotions. Like, yeah. You can look at me and be like, oh my gosh, like I'm sad for you that you have to go through trying to conceive again. But then also I can look at you and being like, I'm sad for you that you had to have another pregnancy in a hard period of life. Like, there's pros and cons to both of our situations. And I think there's no scenario is ever easy.
Yeah. And right? I think that it's very quickly before we wrap this up, and you didn't say we were going to talk about this, but I feel like it actually is kind of a good point, is that you had this like 1% chance that you were maybe going to be pregnant. Remember? Yeah. And you were like, it's not actually practical for me to be pregnant. And there's no way it happened. But you were holding on to this like 1% chance. And it's so hard because you're like, it's not going to happen.
But I also didn't want it. But I also wanted it because it would have meant I would get a May baby. But I don't.
But you didn't. Remember all the emotions. You were like,
I know.
Like it didn't happen. My period just ended. Like this is not it. But
yeah. There was like a glimmer of, well, maybe it did happen and then I don't have to deal with this. But then also I was like, but it's not good timing. But yeah, there was a lot.
I know. Yeah.
And then I think this is kind of, well, it's not off track. I think I've talked about, I really want a May baby. And then I'm like, well, what if I don't get pregnant until next August? And then I would get my May baby, but it would be like even farther, like I would have to wait. But then it took me a year the first time, and I can't imagine having a baby other than Henry. Yeah. And I wouldn't have had him if it didn't take that long. So I do know, as cliche as it sounds, like whatever happens, like it's going to be meant to be. Whatever age gap I end up with, if I only end up having one baby, I think it's going to be my family in the same way that your baby is maybe coming a little bit sooner than you had planned initially. Maybe not, but it's going to be your family, and it's your journey. It's my, I don't know. There's a lot of beauty in it with the emotions.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to wrap it up because I need to go pick up the sweet child from daycare.
Yeah. Thanks for listening as we like rambled on about all these weird things we're experiencing and going through.
And
but
you may never be in this particular situation with, your new friend and podcast host. Yeah. But I hope that it did help you if you are having any of these feelings of either a sort of unplanned pregnancy or your friend is pregnant and it's a lot for you, whether you don't know if you want to have a second child, you don't know when it's going to happen. Anyways, we just want to hold some space for you. It's a lot. It's heavy. It's okay to have those feelings.
Yeah. If someone's telling you need to have more kids and you don't know if you want more kids, like there's just a lot to, okay, you have one, now what? And that's a big...
And we're here. If you need a friend, send us a DM.
Always
Slide into the DMs.
Yeah.
Anyways, happy Monday. See you next week.